there's trouble in paradise. The American Public Health Association has a meeting, and at that meeting that's coming up, they have a session on backlash. The backlash public health experts get for presumably saying whatever they say. In this backlash session, there are 4 speakers, and one of those speakers is Dr. Leana Wen. Leana Wen is, of course, the former president of Planned Parenthood. She is the former commissioner of health for the Baltimore City, and she is an emergency medicine physician, and I think she has a faculty appointment at George Washington University. She is, by my understanding, a progressive Democrat who is very much in line with the thinking of most public health people, most public health groups, probably the American Public Health Association. She's on their page, she's a Planned Parenthood former president. She's a commissioner of a major city. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, I've disagreed with her on a number of instances. Somebody pointed out when I was talking about this issue online that, we haven't always seen eye to eye. Look, I know, I remember, yes. She was very strong about the unvaccinated. I wasn't. I always said that vaccine passports were a bad idea. In fact, you can go pull my op-ed from, I think, April 2021. It's called Vaccine Passports Are a Bad Idea. I always was concerned that mandates and passports were sort of antithetical to the American philosophy and that they could backfire and have unintended consequences for public health. I've always resisted that kind of brute force. She was, of course, more of a proponent for that. I think we've also disagreed on schools. She was critical of reopening schools in the fall of 2020. I was, of course, a proponent. Go back and listen to my podcast episodes from plenary session. Go back and read the op-ed I wrote in, I believe, Stat or MedPage Today about reopening schools. So, again, I was on the different side of that issue as well. This is not about agreeing with somebody. Look, there are lots of people in the world I don't fully agree with. But lately, I find myself agreeing with her more and more because lately she has the point of view that COVID-19 is something we have to live with. We have to make peace with. It's going to be intertwined with human beings for as long as our species exists. And as long as that's the case, we have to do things in proportion. We have to do things that make sense. And we have to acknowledge that infection is inevitable for most people. So we can do things to lower risk, but we can't do things to stave off infection forever. But by her taking that stance, by her moving in that direction, to the direction that, I've been for quite some time, she has incurred the wrath of the public health people, and they have launched online campaigns to get her disinvited from this talk. Oh, God forbid, you public health people, you don't want to talk to somebody who agrees with you only 97% of the time. You're progressive liberal people who are pro-choice. She's a progressive liberal person who's pro-choice. She just disagrees with you ever so slightly and ever so recently about COVID policy, but that's enough for you that you can't even listen to her talk on a panel of 4 people at a conference. I gotta say, put aside how ridiculous it is. These conferences are so boring. They are so boring. I would pay money to hear anybody get up there and say anything that's slightly different than the usual stock and trade. I would be so happy to have anybody say anything different at any conference so I don't fall asleep in my chair. Okay, that's the bar for these conferences. But you don't want that. You want somebody up there who says everything you agree with, and they can't even say 3% of things you disagree with. You don't want her speaking. And they started to launch this campaign online, and now they have a letter, and this is what really got me. It's called Response to APHA When Speaker. It's a Google Doc. It's already accruing signatures. I think it had 300 or 400 signatures when I last checked. It's really remarkable. So the first things I want to be very clear about is this is a public health conference. I don't know much about it. I don't go to this conference. I do have a master's in public health. I consider myself a public health person, but this is not the conference for me. I assume that the people who write this letter and Dr. Leana Wen are almost nearly totally aligned on the issues. They disagree very slightly. I disagree with Dr. Wen. This is not about, agree or disagree. It's just about, are we willing to hear somebody who has something to say that's different than what we are used to hearing? And they say no. And let me read you parts of their letter. Collective statement in response to Leana Wen as speaker for the 2022 American Public Health Association annual meeting in Boston, Massachusetts. As public health practitioners, educators, students, advocates, and allies, we are, an ally to what? I mean, an ally to the public health practitioners? I would assume that you're a practitioner as well. Anyway, we are deeply concerned about the decision to make Leana Wen, MD, Master's in Science, a speaker for the 2022 American Public Health Association annual meeting. Currently, Dr. Wen is slated to be a speaker presenting on backlash. Ironically, we're going to give her some more to talk about, and particularly regarding misinformation. Of course, well, she's perfectly qualified to speak about that. She's been a commissioner for Public Health Association. She's written countless op-eds. She has her own point of view about the issue. Sure, I'm curious to know what she might think. We are demanding our colleagues and fellow leaders in public health reconsider and replace Dr. Wen with someone whose work is consistent with anti-racist, anti-eugenicist public health practices and community health. Eugenicist? What are you talking about? She's not anti-eugenicist. She's a eugenicist? I've never heard anything so absurd in my life. Let me read you a quote this is Professor Eric Wadera, my colleague here at University of California, San Francisco. He writes on Twitter, "You can disagree with Dr. Leana Wen on her stances on opening schools and mask mandates, but connecting her to eugenics in an effort to get her canceled for the public health annual meeting is morally reprehensible. I cannot believe people signed this." She is not, I'm willing to say, despite our disagreements, she's not actually a eugenicist. She doesn't actually believe in eugenics. I hope we can agree that she doesn't hold that point of view and that it's a bit ridiculous that you would claim she did, okay? And I also think she's probably not a racist person. I think she probably is somebody who's worked as much as possible, maybe even more than many of the signatories of the letter, to actually advance policies that are anti-racist to make the world more fair and equitable. She was the public health commissioner of a deeply divided city, and a city that has a lot of equity issues that it still struggles with, and that's Baltimore City. And I spent time there. I did my MPH at Hopkins. So I think that both of those characterizations are wrong and unfair to her. I mean, it's okay to say I disagree with her when she wrote that Washington Post op-ed saying schools should be closed in the fall of 2020. I do disagree with her for that. But they're not saying that. They're saying things that aren't true about her. It's ridiculous. Okay, next paragraph. This is what's really got me. Through her platform on news outlets and social media, Dr. Wen has promoted unscientific, unsafe, ableist, fat-phobic, and unethical practices during the COVID-19 pandemic. And those are all underlined, so they're hyperlinks. I'm going to come back to one because one of them was so interesting to me, I had to click on it. Against my better judgment, I clicked on it to see what was she talking about that made them say that. For instance, in a recent article, Dr. Wen suggested that infection should be accepted as the, quote, new normal. Well, you know what? That's true, because everyone is going to get infected. 93 to 97% of people are going to be infected. You cannot stop infection. It is, in fact, a new normal, because this will be an endemic virus like all the other 4 coronaviruses. She's right about that. In another article, she writes about how learning loss is a threat to children from parents who want to keep their kids safe, despite the fact that as of 8/6/2022, 1,376 children have died from COVID-19 infections. But it is very unfortunate and lamentable that any child died of COVID-19 infection. That's a terrible tragedy. In a perfect world, no child would have died of it. But it is also true that closing schools globally for millions and millions and millions of children has resulted in catastrophic learning losses and loss of life years as they suffer for the rest of their life with limited upward mobility as a result of losing that education. So learning loss is a threat to children. It is a threat to children. What are you talking about? It's a huge threat to children. These are 2 things that are bad. Yes, it's bad that a child dies of COVID-19. It's also bad that millions or hundreds of millions of children have been kept out of school. That's bad. They're entering into globally child marriages. There's famine. There's starvation. They're moving into the workforce. They're uneducated. Their upward mobility is limited. Their life years are going to be fewer and shorter. That's bad. Yeah, what are you talking about? Oh my God. It keeps going. In another article, she advocated for hot vax spring, suggesting that while in an Omicron surge, municipalities lift all protections except vaccination. Well, is that so wrong? I mean, isn't that reasonable? You've done the one thing that lowers the risk of that lowers your risk of bad outcomes, vaccination, and it's inevitable that we're all going to get a breakthrough infection. So why do they want to keep up any further restrictions? Her recommendations also include the unscientific and nonsensical suggestion of designating a section of planes to wear masks in response to an airborne pathogen. I don't know what to say about that. I disagree that masks should be recommended on planes because planes have very good air filtration and they're not really a major source of spread. But also the broader point, which is once you've been vaccinated and everyone gets back to normal, there's really no purpose to be wearing a mask when you're not eating a bag of pretzels on an airplane. An intermittent cloth mask airplane policy is pretty stupid. It's untested. It never had any data. I know it might make some people feel a little bit better, but really never had any data. It goes on. Her repeated statements are antagonistic to and diminish the hard work of APHA members and colleagues who have to deal with the fallout of her messaging, some of whom have experienced compounded harm from being disabled and or immunocompromised. Indeed, instead of listening to those most at risk and being harmed by her words, Dr. Wen has famously blocked disabled activists and public health experts on social media. Oh dear, she blocked people on social media. First of all, I don't think people even understand how many of these people are using social media. When somebody is getting a litany of insults directed at them, maybe even being called a eugenicist or a racist, they might be tempted to block some people. And they don't have the time or the effort to do a full background check on who they're blocking to learn all about that person's backstory. They just block them because they don't want to see somebody insulting them constantly. The other thing is there are a lot of secondary websites where somebody can just take a very mean-spirited tweet and nuke block it so that anyone who liked it is all blocked. They're not blocking you like they don't know who you are. They don't care who you are. They're just blocking lots of people who are abusive and trolls. And somebody like her who's got hundreds of thousands of people following her, of course she's going to be blocking lots of people who have done something abusive in the past. And so it's no crime that she blocked somebody that you think she shouldn't have blocked. In fact, that's no reason to be disinvited. Get out of here. You're out of your minds. Though it would be sufficient to disinvite her based on her statements during the COVID-19 pandemic alone, her record as president of Planned Parenthood Federation of America, a position from which she was fired, should also be considered as further rationale, particularly during this political moment. Well, I don't follow. She was the president of Planned Parenthood. You do understand she's a champion for abortion rights. I mean, she was the president of Planned Parenthood, and you all, I think, are pro-choice people, and you're faulting her for that, but you do understand that y'all agreeing about that. I mean, do we not see that y'all agree about this issue? Now, why was she fired? I think it's been covered in the New York Times. It's one of those so complex stories, nobody knows what happened, okay? There's two different sides of the story. Her side of the story was she thought that they would gain greater traction, I think, if they placed abortion in the broader context of women's health issues, and the other side was that abortion should be an issue fought for directly in the political process. I don't know all the details about this. This is all an inside story. Nobody knows the details of what happened in this firing, but it's clear to say that, you all are mostly on the same page here. It goes on and on. Dr. Wen was responsible for blah, blah, blah. At a moment where abortion acts is under direct threat with multiple states banning abortion, limited exception, it's important to point out that her leadership failure, nobody knows what happened in this organization. All right, I'll skip it. Y'all are pretty much on the same page. You're fighting amongst yourselves. It's pretty childish. I've never seen anything like it. Next paragraph. APHA's decision to make Dr. Wen a keynote speaker and further platform her as a leader within public health. Platform. She doesn't need the platform of a conference that no one's going to pay much attention to. She has a huge platform. She's a charismatic speaker and is on the television all the time. What are you talking about? APHA giving her some platform. She's created a platform, and it goes on, and then it says, is this going to the $30,000 speaker fee she charges? Do they know what she's getting paid? I don't know what she's getting paid to give this panel discussion. Thus, we demand the three demands. Rescind the invitation for Dr. Leana Wen. Replace Dr. Leana Wen as keynote with someone who is capable and can speak to evidence-based practices rooted in collective responsibility for health equity. And 3, publicly reject the rhetoric of inevitable mass infection. What are you talking about? Publicly reject the rhetoric? It's not rhetoric. It's just a simple statement of fact as to what's going to happen. Nobody wanted this to happen. If anyone could, they could go back in time and they would take away the coronavirus. But now, at this point, it is inevitable. I think 93 to 97% of people are going to be infected. It's just a scientific truth. It's like this. It's like, we should reject anyone who talks about the rhetoric of the inevitable sun rising in the east. I mean, it's just going to rise. I mean, it's nothing, have the strength to accept the things you cannot change. I mean, that's part of it. Okay. I got to come back to the thing that really got me. It was the line that she's fat phobic. Because I thought to myself, I can't imagine somebody who's as careful, thoughtful person as her would have made a fat phobic claim. Actually, before I get to that, I just have one more side thing. What do you actually think is going to happen if she comes and gives this talk? Like, what's she going to do up there that's so bad? I mean, I just really can't understand. Like, what's she going to do? She's going to go up there and you might find that, hey, I agree with 97% of what this person says. I mostly agree with her, and maybe she'll say, hey, maybe she might try to persuade you a little bit. Is she going to try to bamboozle you? Or worst case scenario, you disagree with everything, and you get up there at the microphone, and you say something back, and then she's taken it back, and then maybe, her next op-ed is a little bit closer to your point of view. Is that so bad? I mean, what do you think is going to happen if they allow her to talk? All right, back to this fat phobic thing. They call her fat phobic. And I wish I wasn't a curious person. Sometimes I really wish I just let it go. They said it. You don't need to know why they said it. Just let it go. But I'm a curious person, so I had to click on what? It was a tweet. And here's the tweet. I'll read it to you. Hey, Krispy Kreme. I love that you want to thank people for getting the COVID-19 vaccine. Every incentive helps, and free donuts might help move the needle. However, donuts are a treat that's not good for health if eaten every day. Here's my suggestion for what to do instead. So her tweet that they disagree with, and these are public health experts, is that eating a Krispy Kreme donut is not healthy if you do it every day. And you disagree? Are you out of your mind? Of course. I was like, what are you talking about? Of course it's not healthy if you eat it every day. It's a fucking Krispy Kreme donut. It's the worst donut. It's the most processed donut ever. Look, okay? Look, I am not a nutrition, guru. I have looked at the nutrition literature. I know how terrible the evidence base is. I will personally happily eat a Krispy Kreme donut. If you want me to do it on this channel, I will come here. I will somehow find, I don't know where they sell. I'll come find, I'll go to the local Krispy Kreme. I'm from Indiana. There's Krispy Kreme near us, It is a delicious donut. I will happily eat a donut, okay? I'm pretty sure a little Krispy Kreme, it's okay in the grand scheme of life. It's a delicious, highly processed donut, okay? But her claim isn't never eat a Krispy Kreme donut. Her claim is it's not good for the health if it's eaten every day. And they're saying that they're faulting her for that, but that's gotta be true. It's just gotta be true that you shouldn't eat that damn donut every day. Who can defend eating a Krispy Kreme donut every day? We're talking about every day. You really think it's healthy if eaten every day? You're angry with her for saying don't eat it every day? She's not saying don't eat it sometimes. She's saying don't eat it every day. It's unhealthy. I find it so ridiculous. I just can't imagine hating somebody so much that you really, as a public health expert, you fault her for advising people not to eat the worst fucking donut on earth every day. I just can't imagine. It's so bad. It really cracked me up today. Every time I thought about it, I was telling somebody about it, I was just laughing more and more that they just really hate her so much. They hate her that she disagrees on these 3% of issues, that they're like, the one time she told people don't eat the Krispy Kreme donut, and it's not even she didn't just say don't eat donut, it's like the worst donut. Anyone who's ever eaten knows that this is not a healthy donut. And then I see literally just some random person on the internet. He writes this, quote, "Of course, because Dr. Wen said eating donuts isn't a healthy thing, she's called fat phobic. Only a true imbecile would say donuts are healthy food." And I was just like, why does this person have to say this? Because of course a donut every day is not healthy. And then I say, I just don't know what to say anymore. We're at the point where public health experts are so unwilling to hear from somebody who disagrees with them 3% of the time that they're willing to fault her for saying you shouldn't eat but it's possibly the world's most processed donut every day. That's what they say. That's God. She's wrong to tell you not to eat the Krispy Kreme donut every day. And she's not fit to deliver a lecture on backlash at the American Public Health. This is like something that came out of the irony book. I don't know where to even begin. That's really something insane. It's so insane. I don't know what to say. Okay. People want to think that Joe Rogan is the reason why trust in public health has declined. It's Joe Rogan's fault. He hosts that podcast on Spotify, and he's had some guests that say some things I disagree with. And look, I do disagree. I wrote an article in Unheard magazine where I went through their 10 hours of talk, and I said all the things that, there's a kernel of truth, and there's all the things wrong with it. I dismantled it. So I disagree. He's had something. People say some things that I don't agree with. But he's not the reason public health doesn't have trust anymore. One of the big reasons is people like Novak Djokovic. He can't play tennis in this country. I have no idea why. I really have no idea why he can't play tennis. That Kyrie Irving, he was allowed to go to the basketball game, stand on the sideline, but he wasn't allowed to be on the court. But he could be right there, but not right there. And then he went in the back and he got fined. Pretty stupid. you've got public health experts saying that you should disinvite this woman, and she's fat phobic. Why? Because she once told people, don't eat Krispy Kreme donuts every day for every single day. She said, don't do it every day. And apparently that's too far. Public health is losing credibility because of things public health is doing, okay? Today I saw Michael Minha, the former professor at Harvard Medical School, say something like he advised somebody who had just had COVID-19, who was thinking about a booster, that maybe it's best not to get the booster in this moment and let sort of the body learn the immunity from the virus and maybe put the booster down on the back burner. But that was something that many college students weren't allowed to do in this country because we had a booster mandate in March 2020, right after that Omicron wave, and they had to get boosted even within a month after that they had infection. So that's why public health is losing credibility, because that was always a decision made with very weak data. And now you got people pointing that out. So public health is not losing credibility because of the Joe Rogans of the world. It's losing credibility because of things public health is doing to itself. And one of these things is attacking this person who largely agrees with you. There's a whole paragraph attacking her for being on the wrong side of the abortion issue. She's the former president of Planned Parenthood. Do you not understand? That's the same side of the issue. Do you not understand? Do you not know what the sides are? I was like, okay. And you're the public health side. You know, you're the side that's against eating the Krispy Kreme donut every day. I mean, I think we're talking she's not saying don't occasionally eat it. She's saying every day. And you're saying that you don't willing to accept every day? Okay, I don't know what to say. It really, I mean, it would be funny if it wasn't so sad, if it wasn't so, embarrassing. And I think it's embarrassing for the people who signed this letter. They should be embarrassed. You really don't want her to talk? What's she going to do? She's not going to eat a Krispy Kreme donut every day, I can tell you that much. But I don't know what she's going to do up there on the stage. Wow, over 400 signatures now. Pretty pathetic. Look, I say all this as somebody who, I'm not on the same page as her in most issues. And I honestly think all this infighting is not helpful to your side. And being a COVID zero zealot at this moment is really, if anything, is anti-science. It's saying that infection isn't inevitable. That is anti-science, because that's denying what will inevitably happen in the very near term. And in some groups and ages, it's probably already happened. The last zero prevalence in kids under the age of 18 by CDC was at 75% in February, and that's surely higher from that. And that's an anti-nucleocapsid antibody, which may have been lost in a tiny fraction of kids, so that might even be higher than that. So, those are my general thoughts on this issue. I think we're living in a bizarre world where Dr. Leana Wen, who mostly agrees with him, can't give a talk on backlash, and she is wrong and a bad person for suggesting you shouldn't eat Krispy Kreme donuts daily. I told that to a friend of mine, and he was like, that's pretty good advice. He was like, yeah. I was like, it's pretty, I would have thought, uncontroversial advice. Like, if you do it, it's delicious. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've had it before. I know how good it is, especially when you get it hot with that coffee. My God. I mean, it's really good. Okay. Hot in the store with that coffee is really good. But she's not saying don't ever, never do it. Don't enjoy it once a month, once a year, twice a year. Don't enjoy it. She's not saying that. She's just saying it's not good. It's not healthy to do it every single day. And you still say that. No, she's a bad person for telling us that bad advice. What does this public health commissioner know about health? And she shouldn't be allowed to speak at this conference. And for years, she's been on the wrong side of the abortion issue. She's been running Planned Parenthood. It's really something. It's really something. I've never seen anything like it. They destroyed themselves. Their credibility is gone. Anyone who signed this letter, I don't know how they're gonna recover from this if anyone ever puts this together. All right, those are my thoughts on this issue. The absurdity of public health, just when you think you've seen it all. I got to talk about this with my friend and colleague Zoom Damani on the VPZD show. You should check that out, because I think we're gonna have a good laugh about it. Follow my Substack, Vinay Prasad, Observations and Thoughts. Follow the new Substack, Sensible Medicine. I don't even think we could talk about this on Sensible Medicine, because it's just so obvious that you shouldn't even have to put that down in writing. But all right, maybe, I don't know, maybe we have a lot of really great people writing some interesting stuff. We got a great thing coming out tomorrow. I think 3 different doctors are saying, what am I doing in this moment right now about COVID-19? What are the precautions I'm taking? And I think they span a range of different kind of views, and it gives you some perspectives. We're trying to air a range of viewpoints. Dr. Leana Wen, if you hear this video, you're welcome to contribute to Sensible Medicine. We love a range of viewpoints, and I'm happy to have you talk about something where I disagree with you or you disagree with one of my colleagues who writes for it. Sure. Totally fine. A little disagreement is okay. Attacking somebody like this, that's where you cross the line. And the other place, Plenary Session Podcast, if you're interested in oncology. I've got a new paper here on my desk. People ask me about it. It takes it to the spin cycle. I'm going to talk about that. And you know what to do. If you like this channel, like, subscribe, comment, leave a message below. Recommend this video to a friend. That's what helps us get the word out. It's also pretty hot here in San Francisco in this room I'm sitting in right at this moment. So that's why I looked a little hot when this video. And also I've been laughing pretty hard the more I think about this. It really is. You never see anything like this. All right. Until next time.